We are live.
Real estate agent, are you looking to acquire clients consistently so you can grow your business and your income to live a great lifestyle? This is Dave Finale and the RE Skill Builder podcast.
And here we are, and sometimes, like I always do, I forget the frame. Jill Biggs, hello and welcome to Real Estate Talk TGIF. This is episode 138, 136 weeks in a row. We have one great after another every week. Jill, welcome. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. I'm excited to have you on here. And I have to ask you the first question I ask everybody that comes on the broadcast. It's Real Estate Talk TGIF. Are you familiar or do you know what TGIF stands for?
Thank God it's Friday.
Well, yeah, that usually has been the case, but in this case, it's thank God it's finale. And here we are with me, finale Friday. Here we are, Jill, you are an agent that's been around for a couple of years. You've done great work. You're known nationally, but you had, a start that everybody has weird starts, or they started from one place, got to somewhere. I mean, you probably never expected to be where you are today 20 years ago. So,
no,
right? Okay.
I think this is an industry that attracts people who are going to do a restart.
Right, exactly. So talk to me about how you got started in the business, where you started from, why you got in it. Just go for it and just give us what you got as far as where you started and where you are now. Did you plan on getting there?
Quick history. So I was a New York City nightclub bartender in the 80s. And those of you that are our age remember the 80s, right? So I have several years that I don't remember. And
I do.
And I worked at the Limelight, the Roxy, the Palladium. So all of these places where, it was fun. And I actually loved it. But at 27, I decided that I could only wear a rubber dress for so long. And I needed a shift. So, also, I had a baby. And I think 3 days after I had the baby, I brought the baby to the bar. Needless to say, my husband at the time was left with the baby. It wasn't really working out. He was a cabinet maker, and he gave me money and said, you should open a store. And I said, I don't want to open a store. And he's like, everybody wants to work for themselves. So I took the money and I opened a baby store in Hoboken, I had never been to Hoboken. I lived in the West Village. And somehow or other, I answered an ad. I came over. I found Hoboken. I opened this baby store because I thought, I have a baby. I could bring the baby to work. So Fast forward, I did that for 10 years and ended up having 4 daughters, right? Because I needed people to dress. Probably if I didn't have that store, I never would have had quite so many children. And in 2001, we decided we were going to go to the most beautiful place we had ever seen and change our lives. So I sold my store, and my husband packed up his shop. He's a cabinet maker, and we moved to Maui. So we stayed in Maui for almost a year. I sent my kids to a Montessori school, and after a year, I decided I hate the frickin' beach. And I'm a workaholic, right? I've been working for all these years at this store. And I stopped, I moved. Every other month I was there because I didn't really like the people. They live in gated communities, and it was weird, very weird. By the end of this, I'm living 14 houses from the volcano, right? There's no people, and, we're heating the house with firewood. And I'm like, this isn't going to work out. So I came back to Hoboken. Luckily, I hadn't sold my apartment. I'd rented it. I took my apartment back. And I was unemployed. So I needed a job, I had this database.
What year was this?
That is at this point, it's 2005. I did a short stint in Florida, in between Hawaii and Hoboken, because my husband wanted to be somewhere warm. And then finally, after a month, and I was swarmed with like carpenter ants when I was pregnant and had to jump into a pool. And I was like, fuck this, right? So then I came back here, kicked those girls out of my apartment. And 2005, I had a really great friend who I started real estate with. And he was living in Miami Beach, because I neglected to mention, I used to run a restaurant and a nightclub in South Beach. Remember, the 80s, right? Yep. So I had all of these friends that used to work for me as waiters. He was still down there. I sent him a plane ticket. He moved in with me because he's going to help me with my kids. So anyway, after 6 months of him being in my house, my husband said he's never leaving. So I signed him up for real estate school, and he became a realtor. So he started getting dressed. He was borrowing my car, and he was taking people out. And I thought, God, he looks like he's having a good time. I should do this. So I got my license. And like my first day as a realtor, I joined him. We were a team, and he had to give me half of his first paycheck. It was great. So anyway, I had this big database of like 7,000 women who had shopped in my stores for 10 years. And I had also had my kids in every single school. So I had a lot of connections, and I started marketing to them. And I'm a marketer. So I called these people who loved me, and they gave me their buildings, and I kind of hit the ground running. I stayed partners for about a year when I realized that I would be better off doing it myself. We're still, he actually shares my suite right behind me, and he's great, but he likes to go to the spa, and I'm a workaholic. So that was how I got into real estate. And I didn't really have a bad time, because I kind of started the right way, right? Like right. My first deal after what he had to split with me is I sold, a $2 million brownstone. And I was fortunate, and am fortunate, to be in this market where we have, a good price point. I mean, it's pretty diverse, and
right.
And here I am, right? Fast forward, that was 2005. I don't even know what year it is, since all we do is work every day anymore. 2020.
Right. It's actually 2021. Just FYI, just so you know, Jill. I just want to put that out there. Okay, I'm pretty good. No, I'm not with numbers. I'm not really. But anyway, so let's talk about from there to there. One of the things you said that I want to talk about for a little while is that you said you're a marketer. Okay. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about what you mean by that. I mean, one of the things you did that's great that everybody should have heard if they didn't was that you had a list from your store and you started with that. Talk to me about how that came into your marketing.
Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of realtors start out, and the first thing you have to do is tell people that you're a realtor, because there's no secret agents and nobody knows you're a realtor. So you have to kind of get in front of people. So, and I did. So I used my database. I took it. I called everyone. I sent them all cards. I built my business that way. And I also, since I had kids in all these different schools, I'm a participator, right? And
right.
When people want to work with people they know, right? That is right. The truth. And that's how you get started. And I broke down my database, which I still do now. No, not now, because now we're all stuck in our houses. But normally I have, one client appreciation party every year, and then quarterly get-togethers at happy hours, right? So I'm constantly staying in touch. And right. I love on my clients, right? You get a huge amount of business from past clients that like you. And so many people are afraid to reach out, right? But if you stay in contact with them, you're going to get more business, and it just grows like a snowball.
So you talked about marketing in the list. How did you what was the first thing you sent out to your list, or emailed to your list, or called your list? What was that first message?
So I'm a big caller, right? You have, the younger generation, my kids, they love to text, right? Text has no tone, and people do it because it's easy and it gives you that layer of safety. Right, However, all I do is talk on the phone. I called every single person, right? Relentlessly. Hey, I'm back, and I'm in real estate now. So first I called. And then I sent every single person a handwritten card, right, with my business card, telling them, look, I am going to take such good care of your clients. And I continue to do that. When we suck you in at this point, we're with you forever. So you get into a program. I mean, there's different programs over the years that I have built out, but I started telling people I was a realtor. And I think, listen, one of my first deals, I was standing online in Starbucks, and the first office I worked in, where I lasted 1 year, Norma DiRuggiero, if anyone is on here from my local market, everybody in this town, we all started there at some point. She's like fabulous. Anyway, she's been around forever. She said, if you wear your name tag, which I thought was really stupid and hokey, you will get 4 more deals a year. Okay. So I go out and I get myself a nice diamond studded name tag, wearing it online in Starbucks. And the guy in front of me pulls out this floor plan and he's looking at it. And I, of course, can't mind my own business. So I say, oh, is that Maxwell? It's like a townhome. And he says, yeah. I said, you know what? Did you look at this other property? And he said, no. I said, why don't you let me show it to you right now? It is so much nicer. It blows that away. So I sold him 2.6 million cash in one showing. Like, you got to get out there and you just have to continuously have conversations, and I'll give you an interesting thing.
Go ahead.
I remember who my first business coach ever, who after we worked together for 3 months, said that your skill set is you outwork the competition. And that's the truth. People become realtors because they think it's flexible. It's only flexible if you want to be poor, right? If you're not running it like a business, it's not a business. And it has taken me years, right, of correcting things because I'm a salesperson, ultimately not a business person. I've had to learn. And it's, it's been long and hard, right? But I keep at it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I was just having a conversation the other day with some people I work with, and I was saying, it's important for you to build your list. I mean, one way or the other. Look, there's so many ways to do that if you don't have one. A lot of people come into this area, they don't know anybody, or come into their area, they don't know anyone. There's ways to build up, getting known, et cetera, from reading a book to actually going out and doing it. And you're talking about when you're online at Starbucks. And one of the things that I used to do is I would maybe 7-Eleven. I would always talk to people, talk to people. And people say, well, Dave, you're being annoying. I says, no, I'm not. This is the business we're in. We've got to talk to people, right? So I get it. And this is before social media. I'm talking about 90s, right? Yeah. And just getting people. And I said, what you'd have to do is, hey, you know what? I'm in real estate. Here's my card. Could I have your information so I can send you some information from time to time? Probably, I promise I'm not going to bug you. And you know what? 80% of the people would say yes, and they'd give me the information, right? Because you're nice. You're being nice. My buddy, Greg Pruitt down at 621 Connect in Georgia says to me, and he says to all his new agents, you want to go out and get some business today, don't you? They go, yes. He says, all you have to do is be nice. That's it. And that's it. I mean, you were inquisitive, right? You wanted to see what they're doing.
Makes my family somewhat insane, right? They're like, why do you got to talk to those people? But you know what? I'm interested. And I think people, nobody's interested in you, right? They're interested in themselves. If you're interested in them as well.
100%.
And the other thing is, like, I ask a lot of questions. I'm the nosiest realtor. I tell people, I'm going to ask you every single question. I am sorry, right? It's going to give me a better sense of who you are and what you're looking for so that I can figure out how to help you. And I ask people, like they're shocked, the people that work for me. I'm like, by the time we've worked together, I know every single thing. Before I've shown up on the first appointment, I literally, I know if you're getting married, I know who your partner is, I know whether you like animals and what's the most important thing to you. Are you willing to walk up any steps whatsoever? Where'd you go to school? What do you do for a living? And like, I'm really, right, because I'm trying to make a relationship to where you're going to remember me over the other 40 realtors that you meet. And I don't get burned at this point, right? If I take you out, generally it's twice, because I've asked every question and I've listened, right? And that I think people have trouble doing, listening. They're so busy trying to sell property.
Right. Yeah, they're so busy trying to sell themselves, where what you're doing is you're having a conversation. You're talking to them. You're showing that you care. You said you're interested, not interesting, which means that you're asking more questions than you're talking, which means that when you ask more questions, it's about them. When you're making statements, it's about you, and you're not getting anywhere with it, which is really extremely important. And like you said you're nosy, but you know what? I don't think that that's true. I think the situation is that this is what you decided that you're going to do this. You might as well, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it well, right? And you said outworking and all that stuff. I saw something recently, a video of you talking, and you talked about how to build a business. You were talking about how to build your business, and you went from one place to the other. And the whole crux of this little section of this video I saw was all about you knowing your numbers, right? And okay,
it took me a long time to get to that point, right? In the beginning, you would ask me, and I knew I sold a lot of houses, but I didn't really do it in any way that was scalable and repeatable, right? I was a good salesperson. So I got to a point after a few years where I hired a coach, and I've had a coach for my entire career, and they told me, like, you gotta know where your business comes from. So right. I've gotten super granular, and I know what I'm spending money on it, and I know if there's a return on my investment. And if you don't know that, right, it's like the pray and spray method, and as you grow, that's not a good way to plan. You can't plan, and you can't have a budget. And I changed, but it took me a long time. And I'm amazed at how many people, successful people still, that I speak to that have no idea where their business comes from, right? I can tell you that 66% of my business back then came from my past clients right in my sphere. And right. At this point, it's closer to 50%, and 29% comes off of the internet. I have everything broken down. When things start not to be, money making for us, then I stop doing it. And I also learn, right, to hire people smarter than me, which I think takes a while. I see so many people hire an agent, but they don't really. Why are you hiring a buyer's agent if you don't have an assistant?
I have a friend of mine out in California, and when he first got into the business 12 years ago, the first thing he did was hire an assistant. And I said, "You hired an assistant first?" He goes, "Yeah. There was crap I didn't want to do, and I didn't have anybody full time," he said, "but I had somebody to do the shit I didn't want to do, like forms and follow-up calls to people and lawyers and whatever, right? So it made it easy." And you're absolutely correct. So knowing your numbers, right? Now, a lot of people would say, well, what does knowing your numbers mean? Well, it could be, and tell me if you know this number, how many calls or how many people you need to talk to, it's just going to equal the transaction.
Yeah. So we break that down. Last year I had to have 17 conversations a day in order to make what my goals were. And, that's actual conversations, right? So then you're able to track how many phone calls do I have to make in order to have those conversations. And you get better, right? When you get to a place where you're comfortable and you can listen and you're not selling yourself, those number of calls that you have to make, right, before you land ultimately an appointment, they get much smaller. So I do that with my team. Everybody has a business plan, and we break it down to conversations because that's what it is. It's all math. And it's hard for a salesperson to learn that it's math. I mean, I have actually taken every single thing that we spend and I've attributed it to either the buy side or the sell side, right? Everything that's spent, so that I know what is my cost per buy transaction, what's my cost for a listing, right? Because otherwise, if you don't know that, you end up making bad moves, and that's how people go out of business. And it's a learning lesson. Listen, I am that person who years ago had to pay off my IRS debt, which almost killed me, right? Like, I think realtors, we're known, right? They have like that roller coaster. You get a check, you go out and you buy yourself a new handbag. Where's the tax money, right? Because you think you have that money. So if you're not planning and putting it back into your business, or, all of those things are important if you don't want to be 90 years old throwing people in the back of the car and showing houses. And yeah.
That's something I'm looking to do. I don't know about you, but it's not something I'm looking to do, right? Mm-hmm. And it's numbers, it's planning. So you started your business, and you started out with your friend, and then you went by yourself, and then you started building your team, right? And you had said the other day when we spoke that you didn't plan on that; it just happened. Tell me how that happened.
So, well, I got to a certain point, and where I was starting to have so much business that I worked every moment of every day. There was never enough time. I am that mother whose children were all left at some point because mom forgot them. Or, I told them I was taking them to Mexico, and instead I took them to Philly for one day for like a cheese steak. Or like all of these different things. Every one of them growing up has had like headphones and a TV and been watching. And I'm like, mommy just has to show a few more properties. So at a certain point, if I was going to be able to actually be a mother a little bit, as well as, run this business, I needed help. So I hired an assistant, because my office skills are like, if you see me, I'm like, here's me typing, right? You just talked about doing contracts. I haven't done a contract in 10 years. I'm not like, I can tell you and I can go through it with you if I have to, but I'm not doing that. It's not the highest and best use of my time. Exactly. So I think that at this point, right, I forgot what the question was. What did you just say?
Okay. How did you start building your team?
So I hired an assistant, right? And I gave him every single thing that I was doing that didn't make me money. And he did that for me. I actually hired him. He was another agent, and I would listen to him in the community room, and he typed like 90 words a minute. I was amazed, because obviously I have none of that. And he became my first agent. Not because I planned on having a first agent, but because he learned so much and we were together and I wanted him to do well, right? So he started taking out buyers, because I had a lot of them. And then we got busier and I got another assistant. And then I just organically grew as my business grew. I never wanted to say, oh, I can't, I'm not going to be able to do that, right? So right. I'm kind of full service. And I try never to do anything wrong to anyone, which means that like I'm, on top of everything. And it takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot out of you. So I grew that way. And then I just kept adding people. And, at this point, there are a lot of us, and I have a lot of support staff as well. I think 7 of them, because people need support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things that's really important to a lot of people, and you actually intimated to this, is that, hiring the right people, right? And I always say to people when they think about, and there's a lot of things to talk about here, hiring the right people is probably the most important thing in the world. I'd rather not hire anybody than hire the wrong person, right? You'd rather, because, a lot of people say that, oh, if I hire somebody, I can do it faster myself. I can do it better myself, yada, 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 so on and so forth. What would you say to that person that's busy that says they can do it better themselves?
You ready? So I'm a terrible person to hire anyone. I used to hire people, and I hired people I liked, which is people like me that are not organized, right? And it didn't work out. So I changed how that process was. And at this point, when we hire you, my operations manager has an interview with you, right? You've had several interviews before you even speak to me. You've ultimately, you have to pass the final test, but you also have to know yourself, right? Different people work well with different people. I am very, very like this. If you're not on top of your game, right, and you don't think quickly, you're not going to work with me, right? I'll make you insane, and because I am that person. I'm controlling until I'm not. If I know you're doing your job and you've got this, then I don't have to pay attention to it. But it's not easy, right? People are so controlling and think that they do everything better, right? You get to a certain point and you realize you can't be the best at everything. And I think people start out and you can't necessarily afford the best talent, right? If that's the reality of it. So you end up kind of either cutting corners, or you're so afraid of carrying that person that you don't do it. And the best advice I got, I don't even remember who told me this, is, take a few commission checks, put that money away. Now you have their money covered. You know what I mean? Your salary is there. You have nothing to lose. And I think you have to do it that way. I also think, I invested in myself with the coaching thing. Whatever that really helped me, because that gave me more of a plan. And it also poked holes in whatever I wasn't doing that was not knowing my numbers, I had a coach who used to hang up the phone on me if I didn't do my homework. And you have to be coachable. If somebody tells you to do something, you actually have to do it. I think that's another problem.
I got to ask you a stupid question, which might seem like a stupid question. You just said your coach would hang up on you if you didn't do your homework, right? What do you think the typical agent today would do if their coach did that to them?
Well, it depends, right? Anyone who's wired like me, right, and wants to win is going to do their freaking homework. All you need is...
You're atypical. You're not typical, right? My point, Joe, is this: is most people don't want to be told what to do. You said it earlier too, right? You said that most agents get into this business because they want to set their own schedule. If they want to set their own schedule, they're not going to make it, right? They're not going to make it. They're going to do that. And I've had, one of the things that I've done in my coaching business is that I tell people, if you don't do the work, I'm not going to work with you. I've had people not join my program because, well, you said you could fire me and not give me my money back if I don't do the work. I said, you're right. We're not a good fit.
Yes. And you have to be coachable, right? Ultimately, if you're not taking their advice, and you also have to get some sense of self-awareness at a certain point, right? If things aren't going well, generally speaking, it's your fault. It doesn't matter what the market is. I don't care. I listen to the people downstairs, market's terrible. I'm like, they're complaining. If they did something, instead of sitting downstairs and complaining, they might have some deals in play. And exactly. I also think, right, I used to, I've gotten over this, although I do still get up in the middle of the night sometimes and think maybe people are going to wake up and realize that I really don't know what I'm talking about. However, I think the imposter syndrome, right? Where I can't believe that I came from where I was to where I am. And that amazes me still. However, I used to be afraid I would hire somebody or let them into my group and they would steal all of my business. And then over the years, after you come and you work here, after a couple months, you don't want to be me. Nobody wants to be me, right? Nobody, like, that's the thing. The thing is there's not that many people that have hustle, right? Hard work and a good work ethic is so much more important than everything else, right? Because a lot of things you can learn. I mean, you should ultimately be a people person. And I'm amazed at people that have, I represent a lot of finance guys that don't really like what they do, and they do it for the money, right? And I think that that's gotta suck. Like, I am so fortunate because I get up every day. It's not like I have a job. I love what I do. I find it fun. I'm super interested. I love the fact that I can ask people personal questions and they answer me. And I really, really get satisfaction in helping people.
Right.
And I think the other thing is like attracts like. So I surround myself with other people like me, right? Find your tribe. You don't have to help everyone. I go on appointments now. If I don't like you, I don't even call you back. Next. Like, it's not worth it. The aggravation and all of that is, you got to know when you're a good fit. And we here have like the no asshole rule. Like, if you're not nice, you can't work with us because we want to be happy at work.
Right.
And
right. It just makes so much sense. I mean, you know what? There's so many things that can happen in a transaction. There's so many things that happen in our business that we have to work with and we have to deal with. We don't need the people that we work with to be whiners, complainers, and say, saying, I remember in my own business, it was like, well, who's feeding who here? It's like feeding. I mean, come on, just go to work, do your job, right? So I want to switch gears a little bit here, if it's okay with you, and talk about new agents, right? And how that relates to your group, right? So when you first started building your team, there was your way of doing things, right? So how important is it for people, if they're going to have, let's call it a team, a group, let's call it for shits and giggles, let's call it an organization, right? Is it important, and how important, if it is important, is it to have a process and a system when you bring people in to follow?
So, well, otherwise they're going to come in, right? There isn't anybody to help them. It happens in a lot of the offices. The manager, they convince you to go there, and you're really concerned with how much your split is, and it's like, great, you get 90% of nothing is nothing, and nobody helps you because you're the competition. Right. So we and as we've grown, and this COVID thing has been crazy for me because I'm super hands-on, and I typically work with an open Google Calendar, and the newer people jump on and go with you, right? And we have kind of everybody helps you, right? Everybody helps each other. And I have a sales manager, right, who's doing training, right, an onboarding process of what it is that you have to learn before we let you loose, right, on the general public. And I think that, you don't realize how hard it is to get the key out of the lockbox, or, to do a home inspection and how you're supposed to behave. All those little things, how to set up a property tour in order so that the people are going to actually buy something. And then, we'll let you out there at a certain point. If you're not converting, one of us that's more seasoned is going to show up and help you, right? And I think that you lose a lot of that. I mean, ultimately, you don't want to have a team where most of them are doing nothing, right? Because then there's bitterness and it's not going well. And you also, I think, have to look at the people that you're hiring. Like, if you're part-time, it's not part-time. I can absolutely not take you if you have another job. And so setting real expectations and setting people up so that they're actually going to be productive is important. And just having mentoring, right? And somebody who is going to help you and role play with you and teach you how to get hung up on and recover.
So you mentioned role play. So what had been your experience with role play, and what is your thing that you do? Do you still role play, and how often do you do it, and when did you do it, and how did you learn everything?
So interestingly enough, because I started really by myself,
right,
without, and I got to a point where when I got the first assistant, I was doing something like 60 deals. So I had already ingested my scripts. They might not sound, but it's the same. I have a script, right? It's not a script anymore because it's just what I say.
It's you, right?
With my newer agents, we're handing out a script and we're role playing with them. So pre-COVID, right? We had role playing 3 days a week, and getting down that first script as a new agent is super important, because everybody's had somebody call them on the phone where they're not listening to what you're saying, and they sound right like they're reading a script. And right. Until you have that completely ingested, you're not going to be able to do this. And if you don't force somebody to do that, right, by making them stand up in front and role play in front of you, right, then I think you don't get the skills. So many agents quit. I don't know what the average is now about how many people make it, but like if you look at what the average agent does, and that all goes back to not having a foundation.
Absolutely.
Right? There's like 10 objections, right? And if you know how to overcome the objections, right, then you can move on. And otherwise, the next person got it. And that's, something has to click for everyone.
Right.
A salesperson, it takes a bit of time before you really like understand.
Right. Right. So there's the new agent. Let's go through the different types of agents, in my opinion. Right. There's a new agent. There's the agent doing 6 to 10 deals that they're kind of interested. They're kind of in it, and they're kind of just making it go. And then there's the agent doing 12 to maybe 20. They're completely like this, right? Mm-hmm. And they get so involved and so entrenched into one freaking deal where it's the world and everything else, and they don't do anything else. So I think
here's the thing that I think that my agents learn. You have to, sometimes you talk people out of buying, and sometimes you give problems so much life that they become a problem, right? The art of not remembering, my short-term memory loss, like you blow up your own deals. And working with agents that are like that makes me insane. Like that whole thing that nobody tells the new agent that when they're submitting an offer, the first thing you do is you're going to call the listing agent up and you're going to ask questions. You send me an offer, right? And you didn't call me first. You're not even an offer. I don't even listen to you. How could you not have asked what was important to this seller, right?
This is such a little thing that is so huge, and it's like people say to me, "Why should I do that?" Wait a minute. Well, I texted them. No, I sent them. I'm going to send them the offer by email. No, you're out of your fucking mind. Are you nuts? I mean, you got to talk to people. Look, you know what? This is a great thing. This is a fantastic tool. It's a tool. It's not you. It's not me. It's something you've got to use and learn how to use. And honestly, if you also know how to use FaceTime and Zoom to your advantage, it's going to help you, especially in the times we're in. But you know what? That's just like one of my pet peeves. People say to me, when I had my brokers, people would say to me, Dave, can you help me out? I can't get this agent on the phone. She's not calling me back. Okay, he's not calling you back. Did you call him? Yeah, I did. I texted him yesterday. Wait a minute. Did you call them? Yeah, I texted them. I said, no. Did you pick up the phone, dial the freaking thing? No, they didn't. We kind of lose something. And then they say, well, they're not picking up the phone. Hey, I got a tip for everybody watching this broadcast right now. If someone's not picking up your call, They're not picking up because they know the number. If you really need to talk to them, borrow somebody else's cell phone and then call them with that number. They're definitely going to pick up.
Yeah. We have that, especially younger people, right? That's how they communicate. And that's like, they have whole relationships with text, but text has no tone. And you can't, if I ask you questions and I'm talking to you, right? And I am able to match and mirror, right? What you are, right?
Absolutely.
I make a connection, I build rapport, and now you're mine, right? And they don't really, it's hard to get them to make that initial call. You have to force it. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like my kid who works for me, and she doesn't have phone fear anymore. We made her get on the phone. She'd be like, Mom, they hung up on me. I'm like, call him back. And she's like, hi, I think we got disconnected. Like, you got to get a lot of rejection, right? Just so that it doesn't bother you anymore.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Right. So there's a book out there called Go for No, which talks a lot about that. Go for the no's. But I got to ask your philosophy on this, right? So there's people out there that say exactly what you said. There's a lot of rejection out there. We also say that out of 100 calls, you're probably going to get 90 no's. Even if you have 100 of these calls are like your grandma, right? They're your grandmother. 90 of your grandmothers are going to say no to you, right? So here's the thing. There's a school of thought that says, you know what? Go for the no. Understand that you're going to get no. Expect the no. Some people say, and I heard this recently, was, well, then that's a negative expectation and you're putting negative vibes out into the atmosphere and all this other stuff. Talk to me about the going for no, and is it positive or is it negative?
So, you know what? There's no one right way, right? You have different programs, different types of realtors, different coaching. You got Brian Buffini, who's warm and fuzzy, right? And Mike Ferry with, when I speak to somebody and I say to them, 40 people are going to call you later today, right? With the same exact script. All of that, like it works, right? It's working for them. And with my group, I'm a lot more low pressure, right? I give you a script that is not as pushy, right? Even though I'm closing, right? I'm always closing. I'm not closing like a used car salesman. And that also depends on price point, right? You have to look like the people that you work with. If you work in my market and you're wearing a suit, you're an idiot. Right? Because that's not how my market dresses. If you you got to pick up on social cues. And I think we make it more a conversation, that initial LP mom or whatever they're calling it now, asking questions and helping and being of service. I don't get a lot of no's. Well, first of all, I have a very different business, if that makes sense, right? Because my geography is small, and I've done so much with branding over the extent of my career.
Right.
People call me, right? So when I'm calling my sphere and my past clients and my database. And if I pick up and I call you off of, and expired, right? You're typically not hanging up on me. So I just sold your neighbor's house and the 5 other units and this person and that person. So I'm calling to find out, why do you think you didn't sell? Like, I looked at your listing and I can see you don't have a video and your picture's sideways. Do you think that had anything to do with it? Like, it's not so the no thing. However, with my new agents, right, that are learning, you're going to get some rejection.
Right.
Like, people used to make me cry. Now I make them cry, right? Right? Years ago, right? When everyone hurt my feelings. And then I realized after you do this long enough, you kind of get a thick shell. It doesn't mean that that inside I'm not still warm and fuzzy, but this is a tough industry.
Absolutely. I mean, thick skin is one thing, and you're going to get rejection. And so that's why, I mean, the no thing is always like, everybody says think positive and come from abundance and contribution and all this stuff. And a lot of times, we all live this and we all talk this. And a lot of times, some of it, when you put it all together, is just bullshit. I mean, you just want to be able to go out there and say, hey, this is me. This is how I do it. It's like I had every week I do a scripts and dialogue session with my clients, and I was talking yesterday about, well, you know what? You have difficulty talking to people. Well, how about you? It's like the camera, right? Video. The best thing I ever learned about doing video was act like you're talking to somebody, right? Through the camera. And you can do the same thing in your script, in your calls, and whatever you're doing. Instead of talking to somebody, let's figure out who you're going to talk to. Let's talk to Uncle Joe. Let's talk to a relative that you really care about, that you really respect. And this is how you're going to talk to them. That's going to make it easier for you to sound not scripted and for you to actually really care and get that emotion through the phone. Does that make sense to you, Joe?
It's super important. All of those things, right? You see me, I'm standing, right?
Right.
I'm standing, I work at a standing desk. People can hear you're way more powerful when you're standing and using your hands, right? I had a coach at some point who said, with my hands in my pockets, I'm way less powerful. Like smiling, right? The listening for social cues, I think that a lot of agents miss that, and they're really just trying to get through the script. So yes, is super important, right? Having a role play partner that you're not having a conversation, ring, 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 script, and you're done, right? So we do that too. We've done lots of different, this is your partner for this week and you're working with each other and this is the script that we're working on. So I like getting those skills. I think so many agents say, I don't have a script. Everyone successful has a script.
Yeah, and then well, you hit the nail on the head. There's so many things that are so apropos of what we deal with on a daily basis. A lot of people I work will say, well, people keep telling me that they heard this. I'm the 30th person to use the same script. I said, well, shame on you.
That is 100%. However, there's a couple people, right, in my market that their script is so good that it does
it's not a script.
It's not a script anymore, right?
Just like you said, you're a scripted agent, but it's not a script to you anymore. It's just what you do.
Because I can segue back into what is it that I'm trying to get here, right? So I don't have to, so where would you go if you sold your home?
Right.
I'm having a conversation. Right. I am still covering, right? I'm getting motivation and location and price point, and I'm just not doing it the way that it sounds like it's a script. And that just comes from over and over and over my practicing it.
Right. And I'm going to, I'm going to use this broadcast as an example, because the whole thing I say to everybody when I want them on the show, invite them on the show, is this is a conversation. It's not an interview show. So, you say, what questions you're going to ask me? I don't know that, right? I don't know what questions I'm going to ask you. I've had people on these broadcasts where we have a conversation like you and I did the other day, and we've got things that we're going to go over. I've had them where we don't hit anything that we talked about, where it just goes into a direction where we're talking. This is a conversation, and we know what we want to talk about. We want to talk about real estate because that's what we love, and that's why it's called Real Estate Talk. Right. And that's why I started doing this a long time ago. And the point is that if you can talk about what you love because you love doing it, if you don't love it, just get used to it. You will love it because you got into it for a reason. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So what I want to do in the next few minutes is I want to talk about new agents, right? So many times we have new agents. There's a lot of new agents. And still, unfortunately, Most new agents fail in the first few years of their business and they go back to something else. I mean, I see it every month. Agents leaving the business, right? One of the things that surprised me for 2021 is that we still have an awful lot of agents. We didn't lose many, but the reason we didn't lose any, we actually did lose them. We had more people come in because they want to be investors.
What a great time to become a realtor, right? Only time ever. You can do it on camera. You could take the test, right?
Right. You couldn't do that in New Jersey before.
No, and not only that, like if you were fortunate enough to have some sort of job, right, that you were doing while you were getting your real estate license, right? You didn't have to worry about starving to death. So you had all of these people that got a license.
Right, right. So there's all. I mean, I'm a certified mentor for my company, and I have lots of mentees. A lot of them, they're in the wind. You know what I mean? I communicate with them 4 to 6 times a week, and I don't get responses. But I look at that as now it doesn't. I mean, it bothers me. It affects me, but I don't really care as much because their job is to reach out to me. I'm reaching out to them. Where before with my brokerage, it was like, let's go, and that kind of thing. So the newbie thing is, what do you think is the most important thing? New agent comes to work for you, a brand new agent, right? And I know you've had these. Brand new agent, where are you going to start them, and what's their progression for the first 2 to 6 months?
Right. So we try to get them up and running quickly. I have a lot of leads, so practicing on people is good. And we start out, right, in our onboarding, after you learn, I also have a lot of different systems, right, which you have to learn how to use. Right. So after you learn all of my systems, then you have to learn that first script, which, is that buyer intake call. And I typically, even in COVID now, maybe less, but 30 open houses a weekend. Right now, we're probably doing 10. So you're starting out shadowing somebody at open houses, learning how to have that conversation. Right. And I also have buckets of leads, right, where you're calling and you're having conversations with past people that maybe have never answered the phone, or they were renters and their lease is almost up, or you're calling and you're cleaning up my database, or whatever. You're calling to see if you can help anyone with any of their real estate needs. So we try to get them comfortable with the phone. And as much as possible, we're sending them out on other people's appointments so that they can look at the inventory, because if you don't know your inventory, you can't sell anything. 100%. And you could spend quite a while, right, going and looking. I mean, it's terrible to take somebody out and show 6 properties when you don't know where the amenities are and you don't know anything about the building, you don't know the history, so all of that is what we're working on. We're also helping them, with their headshot and building out a social media profile and getting up and running on how that works and the things that they should be doing. But we do start out first with them making a list of every person they know, their doctor, their lawyer, their whatever. That you're putting all those people into your list, and then you have to reach out and let them know that you've launched yourself on a new career. And everyone here is a joiner of something. We all participate, whether you're in your church or or the synagogue or the running club or whatever that is, right? Because right. You have the people that want to work with people that they know, and you have to actually tell them that you're a realtor. So a lot of time is spent on that and on just getting out in front of people and not being afraid. We typically have to go on a certain number of appointments before we send you out alone. And then I run my group with opportunity time. And if you're on opportunity time, you get the leads that come in, right? So before you can get on the opportunity desk, you have to have the script down. And then we're recording, right? And so we have meetings and trainings, and you can hear if somebody's having a problem, right? It's a coaching moment. You can go back and go over where the disconnect is. How could I have done that better?
Right.
Like it kills me when I listen to somebody call about a property and the agent says, "Oh, that's not available." Click. I'm like, how might that have gone better?
Because it's true. It happens all the time. And I don't understand why.
And no matter what happens, right, there is the certain number of people that you hire and the certain number of people that work out. And I think the difference is that they really have to have an awareness that this is a full-time gig and that you have to be committed, right? Because otherwise it's not going to work out. It's, and that means that you're working like at least like I work every day, and which is probably why I'm crazy right now because of COVID. Normally I work every day, but every 4 or 6 weeks, I'm gone for a week doing something else and I rebuild. Right now, there isn't anywhere to go. So it's like,
I know, right? So I want to ask you one other question. I meant to ask you this before. Everybody's involved in a group. Everybody's involved in something. And to me, that sounds like it's a lot of networking, right? So
we're networkers. Yeah.
So how do we network today? How do we network? How does the Jill Biggs Group network in pandemic?
So while everyone was at home in their pajamas, right, we were going after our databases and calling our past clients, not to ask them to get out of their house, but to ask them how they were doing, right? You got to stay top of mind. Otherwise, I mean, everyone's had the experience where somebody sells their house and you had sold it to them and you're like, they didn't even call me. And they didn't call you because they didn't remember who you were.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
And it's, right now we're working on, since we're not going to have a client appreciation party, what does that look like? And, and I do videos and I hired a special marketing company to help me with how do you get in front of people and with Zoom and all of that. And back in May, I was doing Zoom open houses and driving traffic to landing pages and walking people through 3D tours, so that I could still show property. And at this point, an interesting thing, I could take your listing on a Zoom call, super easy, right?
Right.
It's harder to go out, right, with that mask on and to be able to read people, to have them see, right, how you feel. And I think that's what's so weird about this particular market. It's a great time to get good at video.
Oh, absolutely. But you know what I see though? I do see that it's the same thing. It's the same amount of people doing video, the same amount of people are doing the things that they should be doing. And it's just, I mean,
but that is never going to change. That's why you have the 80-20 rule.
Right. Well, it's 90-10, but that's my, But anyway, Jill, I want to thank you so much for being on this broadcast today. And you've been great. There've been so many teaching moments, so many coaching moments, so much insight into you. How do people get in touch with you to join your group, to do business with you? How do they get in touch with you? Well,
my cell is everywhere, right? You could email jill@jillbiggsgroup.com. You can call me at 973, somewhere on there, 495-6038. I'm not
What's the phone number? 973?
495.
Wait a minute. 973. I'm going to want to put it on the screen. 495
6038.
Okay.
I am easy to find.
So at the end of the broadcast, there's a couple things I do, and one of them is we spoke this week, and you wanted to make sure that you were going to be able to, even though it probably would not look 100% perfect on you, but you had to get your hat. So because everybody gets a hat when they come on the broadcast, right? So I make sure that everybody gets a hat, and I know this. It's the first thing you asked me when we talked. I mean, everybody wants.
Everybody knows I need that hat so I can look like Sideshow Bob. I'm getting ready to wear it.
Exactly. So that's the one thing. And the last thing, and how we end each show, is really simple. And it's a question I have for you, and It's a really simple question. Joe Biggs, how do I help you grow your business? How do I help you?
Well, actually, right now I am about to start recruiting. So if you get this out, and if there is anyone who is interested, who is a good fit for us, we definitely are in the process of growing.
Okay.
And, we're always growing.
Absolutely.
I don't know how it can help me. If you know anything I don't know and you give me a heads up on it, that's great, right? You talk to a lot of people.
Right.
I think this year has been about pivoting and staying ahead and making changes. And so I'm always up for conversation with people that are interested in our industry and what it's doing. I try to stay up on that.
Great. Again, I want to thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna go off. Just stay on for a minute as we go off. Let's see if I can work this technology the right way. Not sure if I can, but I'm really going to give it a shot. Sometimes I get it and sometimes I don't. So anybody, if they're interested, just reach out to Jill. Jill at JillBiggs.com, JillBiggsGroup.com, excuse me. Everybody else knows how to reach me. And thank you so much for coming on. We'll see you all real soon. Let's see.